Hey, it's Jody. We are hurtling, I tell you, towards a new year. And I don't know if you are this way, but I tend to take this time of year to take stock a bit, think about how the past year went, try to lock in some good memories, and also reconnect with the things that matter to me going into a new year. It's not so much a resolution, but kind of a recalibration. And I know for me, that often means remembering my values, the work that I love, the people who make the stuff, whether it's music or art or books or audio, the stuff that helps me make sense of myself and the world. I know that's all very high-minded, but if that's not what this time of year is for, then I don't know what it is. Which all brings me to a gentle reminder, dear listener, that the end of the year also means we are nearing the end of the Radiotopia Fall fundraiser. It has been such a joy to make this day over this past year, and as you know, we have such big plans for next year as we head towards our America 250 series, and truly, we cannot do it without listeners like you taking the step from listener to becoming a Radiotopia member. When you support Radiotopia, you are literally helping us make this show by providing stable funding that we can use to pay for equipment, to pay our researcher, to work with Radiotopia to market the show and grow our audience and do fun collaborations. Support from people like you is the Jenga piece that keeps this whole thing from crashing down. And remember earlier when I mentioned checking in with your values? Well, to me, independent, ambitious media, a collective of the best audio makers in the world, gosh, that feels right in line with the kinds of values I want to express, and I suspect you do too, going into a new year. So, I know you're watching the calendar, but there is still time. You can do it right now. Cast a vote for this show and all of Radiotopia. Go to thisdaypod.com to support us right now. thisdaypod.com to make your tax-deductible contribution. Happy New Year, and thank you.
I'm Jeffrey Rosen, President and CEO of the National Constitution Center. A few years ago, learning about the forgotten meaning of the pursuit of happiness changed my life. When the founders wrote that famous phrase in the Declaration of Independence, they meant an ongoing commitment to self-improvement and lifelong learning. This discovery inspired me to write a book, and in my new podcast, I explore the founders' lives with the historians who know them best. Plus, filmmaker Ken Burns shares his daily practice of self-reflection. Join me for Pursuit, the Founder's Guide to Happiness.
Hey everyone, over the next couple weeks, we're bringing you some of our favorite episodes from 2025. This is in part because we're giving ourselves a holiday break, and in large part because we are hard at work at our big year-long series for next year, 50 Weeks That Shaped America. I'm very excited about this series. We've already recorded a bunch of episodes. I think it's the best stuff we've ever done. But anyway, for now, listen to one of our 2025 favorites. Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter, and we will see you on Tuesday, January 6th, with week 1 of 50 Weeks That Shaped America. Thanks for being with us in 2025, and Happy New Year. Hello, and welcome to This Day, a history podcast from Radiotopia. My name is Jody Avirgan. This day, 250 years ago, technically March 23rd, a revolutionary icon uttered some of the most famous words in American history. Or did he? Patrick Henry of Virginia, addressing a group at a church in 1775 in the run-up to the American Revolution. A fiery speech, one that would galvanize and inspire everyone who witnessed it. And in that speech, Henry is said to have uttered those famous words, "Give me liberty or give me death." Folks, we are truly in dad history mode here. This is like an American Revolution clarion call, an absolutely unforgettable piece of oratory, except maybe kind of forgettable because no one seems to remember if Henry actually said that. So, here to discuss Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death, Nicole Hammer of Vanderbilt and Kellie Carter-Jackson of Wellesley. Hey there.
Hello, Jody.
Hey there.
Well, I mean, I think I should start with the obvious question. You know, when offered the choice, where do you land?
I'll go Liberty, I think.
Yeah, we'll go Liberty all day, every day.
I know it's a real Sophie's choice, but, you know.
Yeah, Liberty sounds nice. Okay, so we'll get to sort of why that choice was so impactful at the moment and the framing of that choice, and, of course, whether he actually said those words. But let's get to know Patrick Henry a little bit first. What do we need to know about this Virginian?
Yeah, he's an interesting character. So born in Virginia, and from a life of privilege. He goes to school, but pretty much gets tutored by his father, who attended King's College, and, gets exposed to sort of all the types of leadership he should have as an adult. He's known as being sort of a character, pretty charismatic, pretty charming, no trouble with the ladies. He was known as being a good dancer, which I would love to kind of see, like, your dance moves. What do these dance moves look like in the 18th century?
It's mostly waist down, I'm going to go ahead and say. There's not a lot of, swaying of the hips or anything.
This is like when waltzing was the equivalent of Dirty Dancing and Patrick Swayze.
Yes. Yeah. But he's popular. He's liked, he's beloved. He's not very successful in the business world, though. So at 15, he tries to take on sort of an apprenticeship. He clerks for like a local merchant, and that doesn't work out too well. He tries to open up a store with his older brother, William, and it winds up failing. And then maybe a few years after that, he takes over a farm, and also that has sort of like a tragic end too. The main house of the farm burns down, and pretty much he's at a loss for what he's going to do for work. He tries becoming like a host of a tavern, and eventually he picks up the law. In about 1760, he gets his law license, and he starts working as a lawyer, and that really takes him into the field of politics. He, gets elected to the House of Burgess, and from there, it's almost like stratospheric in terms of his climb. That charisma that he had, that charm that he had, was really like perfectly suited for politics, and so he's able to sort of, corral his colleagues in a lot of ways. He's pushing things like, speaking out against the Stamp Act. He's kind of like giving treasonous words and talking about, King George III and like, him having like this detrimental downfall if he's not willing to play nice. Like it's kind of wild. And I think people also don't know, when they connect his most famous sort of slogan or catchphrase, that he's also a slaveholder. So when he gets married, his wife, he inherits like 6 enslaved people. And then throughout his life, he's purchasing and selling enslaved people.
Well, the me in Give Me Liberty.
Yeah, I know.
It's say give us liberty.
Yeah. I will say, I love the idea that he's, a good-looking fiddle player who crashes out of a few other gigs before he works his way to becoming a lawyer. It's a reminder that, everyone has those wandering years, and that's fine,
sure.
and they're probably important. Though it is funny, the compressed timetable. He's only 24 by the time he's crashed out of those 5 jobs and then decides to become a lawyer and get, but I think 1775's 24 is this year's 40 or whatever.
Well, 15 is like adulthood, you know what I mean? Like, so, yeah.
And he's definitely one of those people who kind of met the moment, right? He enters politics just as revolutionary fervor is starting to mount in the United States, and he is positioned against the British, right? He's proclaiming himself pretty early on in 1774 during the Continental Congress. He's like, I'm not a Virginian, I'm an American, which is actually, as you were saying, Kellie, treasonous at that point in time.
Is there any other kind of fervor but revolutionary fervor? Have you ever heard about other fervors?
I think that's the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was about to use that same phrase, and then it occurred to me. So if listeners if there are other historical fervors, then I would love to dive into them. Anyway, so yes, he catches
now that
the
we've
fervor.
clarified that.
He catches the fervor fever, and he ends up going to the Continental Congress. That's right?
Right. So he goes to the Continental Congress in 74, and then the next year is where he enters our story for this potentially apocryphal speech, or at least the line is apocryphal. The speech itself is not. So it's March of 1775. He's in Virginia, where he's from. And he had been elected as a delegate to the Second Virginia Convention. And this is about the state itself, trying to figure out where it stands on this issue of independence, revolution. Where are we in this revolutionary moment? And they're all gathered here in this church, and there are lots of people speaking. And the issue on the table is, do we want to just stay at peace with Great Britain, or do we want to start raising a militia in order to get ready for war? And the debate is going back and forth on all of these different things. And Thomas Jefferson is there. George Washington is there, because Virginians kind of run everything in the years ahead. And as he's sitting there, he's listening to this debate. And suddenly he rises from his pew. And one of the ministers who was there later describes him as having this unearthly fire burning in his eye. So he's head up, right? Like he's fired up because he sees a principle at the base of this. Because it's not liberty or death. There's a secret third thing, and that is enslavement, right? Unfreedom. And that is the thing that he is saying, I'll take liberty, I'll take death, but I am not going to take enslavement to Britain. Interesting choice of words given everything.
Given that he's a slaveholder.
But he rises up and purportedly says, is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. And not willing to stand on just those words, he then picks up a paper cutter and then plunges it towards his heart, acting as though, I'll take death.
Which I want to get to the paper cutter drama for sure in a second. But I don't know, just sort of point out the obvious there. He says, is life so dear as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. No one in that room connects the dots to actual chains and slavery.
No.
No. And in fact, I think Kellie's mentioned this before, but, people often debate, oh, well, it was the mores of the time. They didn't know that slavery was evil. They didn't know that slavery is terrible. They'd rather die than be enslaved.
Yeah, they know. They absolutely know. As a matter of fact, Abigail Adams is calling it out. Like, there's such hypocrisy. They all know that. And they know it because they don't want the plight of their enslaved. That is their example. That's their motto. You want to be these guys? We don't want to be these guys. And matter of fact, I think it's John Adams that says we won't be their Negroes. It's so clear. But again, there's also this cognitive dissonance in terms of how people are thinking about themselves and versus how people are thinking about Black people.
Yeah.
A lot of short daily news podcasts focus on just one story. But right now, you probably need more. On Up First from NPR, we bring you 3 of the world's top headlines every day in under 15 minutes. Because no one story can capture all that's happening in this big, crazy world of ours on any given morning. Listen now to the Up First podcast from NPR.
This day is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Listen, going online without ExpressVPN is like driving a car without a seatbelt. Even if you are the best driver in the world, do you really trust your life to all the other erratic, maniacal drivers on the road? Look, I'm pretty savvy. When I go online, I try and protect my information. I'm careful about what sites I visit, but I often have this lingering feeling in the back of my head that just one mistake will send my information down this whole rabbit hole where it'll get traded and exploited, and you never know where it will end up. ExpressVPN stops hackers from stealing your data by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. When I turn on ExpressVPN, which, by the way, works on phones, laptops, tablets, and more, I know that I am staying secure. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/thisday. That's expressvpn.com/thisday to find out how you can get up to 4 extra months. expressvpn.com/thisday. So we are starting to get into the thick of the holiday season, and while I love the holidays, I also know that it's a really tricky time to try and eat healthy. The sweets, the baked goods, the holiday parties, the family dinners. I have a theory that the window for bad eating actually goes from Halloween through to the Super Bowl or maybe even Valentine's Day. It can just be a really tough stretch. Which is why, when I have a chance to actually cook at home for myself and my family, I really want something healthy, seasonal, full of vegetables and great flavors. And HelloFresh does the trick. They are the #1 meal kit in America, making home cooking easier with chef-crafted recipes and fresh ingredients delivered straight to your door. And they've recently taken things to the next level, doubling their menu, packing it with healthy, high-protein recipes from all over the globe. If you cook at home with HelloFresh, you just might forget that you ate all that junk at those last 5 holiday parties. The best way to cook just got better. Go to HelloFresh.com/thisday10FM now to get 10 free meals and a free item for life, 1 per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on the first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. Once again, that's HelloFresh.com/thisday10FM to get 10 free meals and a free item for life. We'll talk in a second about how so many of the details of this moment are hazy for understandable reasons. But in the way you described it, Niki, do you get the sense that he was sort of moved impromptu in that moment? I mean, there is this sort of religious taken over by the spirit element to it all.
I think it's hard to know. It doesn't necessarily, like what he said, and again, we'll talk about whether he said what he said, but he's drawing from language and debates that have been happening for a decade at that point in time. I do think that if he's sitting there in the middle of this church, and I mean, just put yourself in that position, you firmly believe that what the state has to do is raise a militia, that you have to break from Britain, that you have been advocating for this for most of your career. And now you're listening to all of these people say, I don't know, maybe we should just say peace with them. I don't really want a war. Like, peace is so much better. You would get mad and, come out with some pretty strong statements. So I think it's a combination of the two, right? Yeah. Like, he's frustrated in the moment, but also he has been rehearsing these arguments for a decade and is ready to unleash them on this gathering.
Yeah. I mean, he's a lawyer, right. When you think about the fact that that's what he's supposed to do, to make these arguments, to make these impassioned arguments. He also grew up, in a religious home in which he's hearing these passionate speeches and sermons. And so he knows, I think, how to hit those points in which people will respond to what he's saying, either emotionally or politically.
Well, so on those two fronts, politically, it works, right? The convention adopts the amendments, the stuff that he was proposing. Obviously, we know that then there's a march towards arming and march towards confrontation. And, but it clearly works as a sort of which choice are we going to make coming out of this? And then, obviously, so many of the stories coming out of the speech are about the deep emotion of it all. Thomas Marshall, who was there and actually is the father of John Marshall, who would become Chief Justice, reportedly said that the speech was, quote, one of the boldest, vehement, and animated pieces of eloquence that have ever been delivered. My favorite tidbit is from this guy, Colonel Edward Carrington, who was, I guess, watching the proceedings through a church window, but he was so moved by it that he apparently turned and proclaimed to the other people around him who were watching this speech, and he said, "Let me be buried at this spot." And then apparently, when he died a couple decades later, his widow took him up on it and buried him right there. But that feels a little. I think I yelled that once at a concert. I was so moved. But then I got kicked out of Webster Hall. It is a little extra.
Yeah.
I wonder if other people were like, buddy, let us just watch the speech.
Yeah, I know. Reel it in.
It was fine. This isn't about you. But that is something that connects all of these recountings of this day. Even if, as we'll talk about, the language may be contested, there really is a sense among the people who were there that something very dramatic had just happened. Yeah. Some of the other recountings from the moment are just nobody spoke for a while after he did this because they were just so captivated and moved by what he had just said. And so there
Except
is
for the guy who was going around saying, you heard me about the getting buried at the spot.
Right? Did somebody write that down?
Did someone write that down?
I want a plaque.
But it's also when someone gives a speech that's just a banger, nobody wants to go after you.
Yes,
you know what I mean? Who goes after MLK? No one.
Right.
Thomas Jefferson had been starting to stand up and he just sinks back down in his pew.
I know, right? There's nothing else to say.
Isn't there a story about the Gettysburg Address? I think of someone who went before Lincoln and spoke for a long time. And then Lincoln came up and just delivered, whatever it is, very short. Very
short,
thing.
sweet. And they're he should have been the only speaker.
Yeah, exactly. So the veracity of this. I mean, to maybe state the obvious, the record keeping and the reporting of this is very spotty. And so many of the accounts of this speech are, largely through oral history and often people telling their kids and then those people telling their kids. And it's really not until, 1817, a generation and a half later, that the speech first appears in print. There's a biography of Patrick Henry in 1817 in which this is finally written down, and that includes that line. But, it's really hard to say how accurate things were by that point. The other thing it includes is this detail about him taking a paper cutter and plunging it towards his chest dramatically to illustrate the point about his willingness to die for the cause. It's funny, that detail is just strange and a little underwhelming enough that I believe it, Like if it was apocryphal, it would be like a dagger or it would be held to his throat. But the fact that it's a paper cutter makes me think okay, that's probably a true detail, because small underwhelming details like that don't sneak through if you're totally just turning it into a legend. So,
although we should say that detail didn't emerge for 100 years. So, but we'll take it.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah, that feels plausible. Sure, surely a paper cutter was on the table.
So anyway, it is hard to say, Patrick Henry did not write his speeches down. There wasn't a contemporaneous written down report of it. People mostly just shared what they heard and talked about it. There are theories about this particular language, about liberty and death, and none of them definitively point towards whether he uttered that phrase in that exact way or not. But the fact is that there were a number of that kind of formulation between those two things floating around at the time. So there was a 1713 play, Cato, which was very popular in the American colonies and was well known by the founding fathers. And in it, there's a line that says, "It is not now time to talk of aught but chains or conquest, liberty or death." In Handel's 1746 Horatio, Judas sings, "Resolve, my sons, on liberty or death." The phrase liberty or death appears on the Culpeper Minutemen flag of 1775. So the phrase is kicking around, which I guess argues in both directions, right? It argues towards, Patrick Henry's going to pick it up and use it because it's a well-known formulation, or it argues that he didn't use it, but others kind of felt like his speech was very much in the spirit of this, and they kind of then over time inserted it into the record of what happened.
Mm-hmm. And I know that it's this famous phrase, and so we want to know definitively if it was said, but I think it ultimately doesn't matter. He's speaking in the revolutionary patois of the time. That's how people spoke about this desire for independence and for freedom in a century in which people were obsessed with that idea.
Yeah.
And so we know that he is making that kind of argument, even if we don't necessarily have it down to the word.
Yeah. I still think that it represents the spirit of how people felt at the time, and how the sort of this ultimatum of what people had before them felt like life or death, felt like very, very pressing. And I think it feels so pressing, particularly when you're up against the institution of slavery. Those dichotomies are, no pun intended, but very black and white and very either or. And so, yeah, it feels like it would track. Now, maybe there's a little bit of fudging of the language or something like that, but I don't know.
Dress it up a bit.
Yeah. There's some stuff, though, that's is it accurate or is it authentic? And sometimes I think authenticity matters just as much as accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And certainly for the purposes of what this phrase does, I mean, it becomes a rallying cry. Soldiers are embroidering it onto their shirts. There's flags that say liberty or death. I mean, it does the trick. And I think it's totally reasonable to sort of largely credit Patrick Henry as someone who's kind of injecting that idea into the discourse. Henry goes on. He's Virginia governor from 1776 to 1779. It seems like he doesn't walk the path that a lot of other founding fathers do in terms of his military career. They don't really recruit him into the army. They kind of, I think, assess him as maybe not the best field general or fighter. So he kind of doesn't have a huge role in the fighting itself, but then he has a little political role afterwards. And he kind of seems to want to just settle into life in Virginia. I mean, I think he's offered overseas posts and sort of higher national positions, and he's down to just hang out on his farm.
Yeah, you get the sense that he was a writer and speaker, but his ambitions were not I want to be leading one of these new parties. I want to hold federal office.
Yeah.
Goes back to Virginia.
Totally reasonable.
Fine.
Yeah, just play the fiddle. Be attractive.
Have some dance parties.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. And listeners, you can decide whether you think it was uttered or not uttered or whether it doesn't matter. But that brings us to the end of the episode. Nicole Hemmer, thanks to you as always.
Thank you, Jody.
And Kellie Carter-Jackson, thanks to you.
My pleasure.
This Day is a proud member of Radiotopia, a network of independent, artist-produced podcasts. Don't forget to sign up for our America 250 Watch newsletter. Every Thursday, members get exclusive access to analysis and information about the upcoming semi-quincentennial, commentary from our team, and a list of fascinating things that happened that week throughout history. Join in, find out lots more at thisdaypod.com. You can also follow This Day Pod on Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Jacob Feldman is our researcher. Brittany Brown is our editor. My name is Jody Avirgan. See you soon.
Radiotopia.